walked into my study that morning, expecting the quiet hum of routine, the smell of coffee, the soft shuffle of papers, the familiar weight of my old desk under my fingers. Instead, I found emptiness. The safe, the one that had held decades of planning, savings, and my late wife's jewelry collection, was open, bare, nothing inside. $180,000 gone. Jewelry gone. Years of careful work, of security, vanished in an instant. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. I simply ran my fingers along the cold, smooth metal of the empty vault. No scratches, no marks. A clean job. Professional, methodical, precise. And then the voice hit me. The faint laughter from the kitchen. Lula, my daughter, and Seth, her husband. They'd been living in the guest wing for a year, promising it was temporary. Temporary, right. I dialed the Phoenix Police Department. Calm, precise. I reported the theft. Detective Ramirez arrived within the hour, mid-40s. Tired eyes, the kind that have seen every human lie. He examined the safe like a surgeon, tested the lock, photographed the interior, and then he said what I already knew. "We're looking at someone who knew the code." I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. 3 people had access. Me, my daughter, her husband. That simple fact weighed in the air like a storm about to break. I called them to the study. Seth appeared first, awkward, nervous, his hands twitching in his pockets. Lula followed, a practiced look of concern masking something else I couldn't yet name. "Dad, this is terrible. Who would do this?" Her voice was high, forced. Too sharp. The hug that followed felt rehearsed, not comforting. Detective Ramirez asked about the safe, the combination, the night's events. Seth fumbled through explanations. Lula jumped in with praise. "My father is the most honest man I know." Their words were hollow, empty, and yet they revealed everything. I didn't react, not yet, because deep down, I already knew who had done this. And when the week was over, when they flaunted their new house and car, smiling as if nothing had happened, they would learn just how cold, calculated, and precise revenge could be. Before we continue, everyone listening, make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment with where you're tuning in from. Every story carries a piece of life we all know, and sometimes a piece of the justice we deserve. The next few days I watched them. Lula and Seth moved through the house like it was their stage, oblivious to the storm I was quietly building. They had a new car parked in the driveway, a silver Audi gleaming in the morning sun. The bank statements hinted at the new house in a prestigious neighborhood. Every glance, every laugh, every casual mention of their purchases burned like fire on my skin. But I didn't lash out. I didn't call the police again. I observed. I listened. I cataloged every slip of the tongue, every tell that revealed the truth they desperately tried to hide. Detective Ramirez came by once more. He spoke carefully, professionally. No physical evidence, no forced entry. Someone knew the code. That narrows it down. I nodded slowly. Yes, narrowed down. To them. And yet, the brilliance of revenge isn't in shouting accusations. It's in patience, precision, timing. Every day, I went through the motions, careful not to reveal my knowledge. I brewed coffee, arranged my papers, smiled politely when Lula and Seth spoke, their laughter sharp, smug, careless. But inside I was planning. How would they feel when the tables turned? When their stolen fortune no longer protected them? They flaunted their new life without restraint. Seth bragged about the Audi's horsepower, while Lula described the interiors of their new house in breathless detail. I listened, noting every extravagance. Every boast, every careless slip became a blueprint for poetic justice. And then the phone rang. It was Seth. "Uncle Oliver, I don't understand. What have you done?" The panic in his voice was unmistakable. The carefully curated bravado was gone, replaced by raw fear. I smiled quietly. This was the beginning, the first crack in their perfect facade. Before we continue, everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment with the city you're in right now. Every story like this, betrayal, revenge, justice, teaches us something about patience and timing. The week that followed was a quiet storm inside me. Outside, the world went about its business. Cars honked, neighbors argued, birds chased each other across the sky. Inside, I was building a different kind of empire, one that would not only reclaim what was stolen, but turn the betrayal back on them in ways they would never forget. Seth and Lula flaunted their new life as if rubbing it in was a right. I saw the silver Audi gleaming in the driveway, the reflection of sunlight dancing off its polished surface. I heard the excited chatter about their new house, the prestige neighborhood they were so proud of, every expensive detail touted like a badge of triumph. And yet none of it frightened me. None of it. Because I had something they could never take. Time, patience, and a mind that didn't act on impulse. I started by revisiting the safe. Even though the cash and jewelry were gone, it was more than metal. It was a symbol of betrayal, of trust broken, of years of careful planning violated. I ran my fingers along the cold, smooth edges, imagining the perfect ways to turn their arrogance against them. I mapped out their movements, their habits, the way they interacted with each other. Seth was careless in his excitement. Lula was boastful when she felt unseen. Those small cracks, invisible to most, became the foundation of my plan. I documented everything in detail. Their new purchases, the exact dates, the amounts. Bank transfers that hinted at reckless spending. Social media posts showing off their wealth without realizing the storm brewing. Every boast, every careless slip became a piece of the puzzle I was constructing. At night, I would sit in my study, the desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls. I'd imagine their faces when they realized they were no longer in control, when the very tools they used to flaunt victory would be used against them. They thought stealing my life's work would make them untouchable. They thought arrogance was a shield. They were wrong. I began testing the waters with subtle manipulations. A casual mention of an opportunity to mutual acquaintances, just loud enough for Seth to overhear. A suggestion to a friend about a great investment that didn't exist, knowing Seth's curiosity would push him to investigate. Small, invisible nudges, planted like seeds in fertile soil, waiting for the right moment to bloom. I watched them carefully. Seth's casual confidence began to waver. Lula's bright laughter sometimes faltered, her eyes darting nervously when she thought I wasn't watching. The first cracks appeared, subtle, almost imperceptible, but they were there. And I knew that once the first fear took root, it would spread like wildfire. I even began taking precautions, ensuring my own steps were untraceable. Every move I made was precise, leaving no hint of my intentions. Because revenge is not about emotion, it's about control, timing, strategy. Every night I reviewed the plan again, adjusting, predicting, calculating. I imagined Seth in that silver Audi, bragging to friends, oblivious to the fact that I had already set the foundation for their undoing. I imagined Lula hosting parties in their new home, unaware that the very walls they admired would soon echo with their own realization of loss. Then came the first tremor, a text from Seth late at night. "Oliver, I don't understand. Something's wrong. I hate this feeling, please. I can't handle it." I stared at the screen, calm, collected. This was it. The first real sign that my plan was working. The carefully cultivated fear, the uncertainty, the creeping panic. They were finally tasting the emotions I had felt for weeks. I didn't reply, not yet. Silence was part of the strategy. Let them stew. Let the uncertainty eat at them. Because revenge is never loud. It is patient, precise, unavoidable. Every day I continued observing them while keeping my life moving forward. I paid bills, took calls, went about errands, all the while orchestrating subtle moves that would soon make them realize you cannot take from Oliver without consequences. I even found small personal joys in the planning, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that every boastful grin, every careless action of theirs, was being catalogued, waiting for its moment. Soon they will remember the exact day they thought they outsmarted me. Soon the truth will hit them like a hammer. Before we continue, everyone listening, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment with where you're tuning in from. The morning sunlight streamed through the blinds, catching dust in the air like tiny stars suspended in time. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching the quiet street outside. Seth's silver Audi was parked across the driveway. Shiny new, a testament to stolen fortune. And for the first time it felt vulnerable. Because the man behind it, behind the theft, behind the smug confidence, didn't know who he was dealing with. I began the first strike carefully. Not a loud confrontation, not a threat. Just subtle, methodical moves that would shake their sense of security to the core. The first target, their finances. A few discreet phone calls, careful questions to mutual acquaintances, hints of discrepancies, small but unnerving inconsistencies. By the afternoon, Seth's nervous energy became palpable. He muttered under his breath while checking his accounts, fingers trembling over his phone. Lula noticed too, and her laughter, once bright and careless, started to falter. Every glance they shared carried unspoken anxiety. The first cracks in their perfect facade, Then came the house. The new house they flaunted like a trophy. Vulnerable, I discovered small errors, overlooked issues, plumbing quirks, a delayed permit, a contractor who had cut corners. One call, one well-timed conversation with the right people. Suddenly, whispers began circulating about the house, subtle doubts creeping in. Did you hear about the inspection? There might be a problem with the permit. Seth paced the living room, muttering curses under his breath. Lula wrung her hands, voice tight. It's just a minor delay. But they both knew deep down the first blow had landed, and it came without me lifting a finger in anger. I even started planting seeds among friends and neighbors and casual mentions of opportunities or threats, always precise, always carefully measured. Every rumor, every offhand comment, every subtle hint chipped away at their confidence. At night, I watched from my apartment window. The glow from their new home shone through the curtains, but instead of pride, it seemed to flicker with uncertainty. Seth slammed doors in frustration. Lula whispered frantic calls to friends, and for the first time they felt the weight of fear. But the true satisfaction was seeing their interactions. The once confident duo, gleaming in stolen success, now navigating their world like it had shifted beneath their feet. They argued over trivial matters, tension hanging thick in the air. Even the smallest misstep, a late payment, a delayed delivery unsparked a cascade of panic. I didn't intervene. I simply observed. Every twitch, every hesitation, every flinch from their eyes fed a quiet, satisfying triumph. Then came the phone call that truly confirmed it. Seth, voice shaking, breath uneven. Oliver, I don't understand. What's happening? Why is everything falling apart? I smiled faintly, calm, collected. Maybe you just forgot what it feels like to be powerless, I whispered to myself. And in that moment, I realized the first blow wasn't just a minor inconvenience or financial ripple. It was psychological, subtle, and devastatingly effective. They were beginning to understand, slowly, painfully, that stealing from me had consequences beyond money or possessions. That night, I sat at my desk, sipping tea, running through the next moves in my mind. The plan was unfolding exactly as I envisioned. Patience, timing, and precision, the three pillars of revenge, were working perfectly. And somewhere in their mansion, in the new car parked under the sun, Seth and Lula began to question every decision, every boast, every moment of arrogance. Before we continue, everyone listening, make sure to subscribe and comment with where you're watching from. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes the quietest, most precise strikes leave the deepest marks. Days turned into a tense rhythm. Every glance from Seth carried suspicion. Every laugh from Lula was strained, brittle, fake. I moved quietly through my days, outwardly calm, inwardly orchestrating every detail of the reckoning. The house they flaunted like a trophy became a stage for my silent retribution. I reached out to contractors, inspectors, and service providers, carefully, discreetly, planning small obstacles that seemed innocent but were designed to unravel their sense of control. It started with the plumbing. A minor leak here. A delayed service call there. Things any attentive homeowner would notice, but these small disruptions gnawed at their confidence. Seth tried to dismiss them, calling himself capable, in control. It's just a small thing. We'll fix it ourselves. But the more he tried to ignore it, the more obvious it became that their new life had cracks. Lula's frustration was even more palpable. Her social calls became frantic, her laughter tighter, her movements restless. She would pace the living room, voice trembling slightly, asking about details she previously ignored. Every slip she made, every hesitation, every raised brow betrayed her growing awareness. They had underestimated Oliver. Meanwhile, I orchestrated subtle financial pressure. A delayed payment here, an overlooked invoice there, small enough to seem coincidental, yet cumulative in effect. Their new car, the silver Audi, developed minor issues. The dealer's service team was unusually slow, as if by design. Seth fumed. Lula snapped at him over trivial matters. Why didn't you check this? I thought you handled it. The tension escalated. Every minor inconvenience became magnified. Every small failure a reflection of the storm they had unleashed when they stole from me. Then came the text I had been anticipating. Seth, Oliver, it's happening again. Everything is falling apart. I don't know how to fix this. Please, you have to help us. I leaned back in my chair, calm, serene. This was the point I had been waiting for. The first real taste of panic. A glimpse into their crumbling confidence. I didn't reply. Silence was more devastating than words. Fear, uncertainty, and guilt, their own creation, now controlled them. At night I watched them from a distance. The lights of the house flickered like a warning sign. Seth slammed doors. Lula whispered frantic phone calls. The tension between them was raw, visible, unspoken. For once, the couple who had flaunted stolen wealth felt powerless, vulnerable, exposed. And yet I did not intervene. I let their panic grow naturally, amplified by my careful orchestration. Because revenge, the kind that is calculated and cold, is not about instant gratification. It's about watching the consequences of betrayal crush them slowly, inevitably. Every day I refined my plan. I anticipated every move, every reaction, every desperate attempt to regain control. I knew that when the final act came, it would be devastating, precise and unforgettable. They thought they could take from me without consequence. They thought arrogance was a shield. They were wrong. The morning air was crisp, but inside, the tension was suffocating. I watched from my office window as Seth paced the driveway, running a hand through his hair, muttering under his breath. The silver Audi, once a symbol of stolen triumph, now seemed like a cage, a gleaming reminder of arrogance meeting consequence. Lula appeared at the doorway, phone in hand, whispering urgently. I could hear fragments. Nothing is working. The bank called. They said there's a discrepancy. I leaned back in my chair, calm, sipping coffee as if nothing were happening. Because everything was happening exactly as I planned. I had arranged subtle financial setbacks that would now cascade. Late notices, delayed transfers, minor alerts flagged on their accounts, all seemingly coincidental, all magnified by their growing panic. Seth tried to control the chaos, checking statements, making calls, pacing like a trapped animal. Lula followed, frustrated, snapping at him over every minor error. Why didn't you check this earlier? I thought you handled it. The cracks in their confidence widened with every passing hour. Then came the first confrontation, indirect yet devastating. A mutual acquaintance stopped by the house, casually mentioning overheard whispers. Did you know there's a problem with your property taxes? I heard the inspection might not pass. Panic flared. Seth's hands shook as he gripped the steering wheel of the Audi. Lula's laughter, once bright and carefree, became brittle and nervous. And still I did nothing. I watched. I waited. I allowed their own mistakes, arrogance, and fear to do the work for me. By evening, the tension was unbearable. Seth called repeatedly, leaving frantic messages. Oliver, I don't know what's happening. Everything is collapsing. What have you done? I smiled faintly. You only see the beginning, I whispered. Every calculated step I had taken, the financial nudges, the small errors, the social whispers, and had coalesced into a psychological chokehold. They could feel the walls closing in, their perfect facade crumbling, and their stolen triumph slipping away. But the most satisfying moment came when they turned on each other. Arguments erupted over trivial matters, misplaced keys, forgotten appointments, minor delays in bills. Each quarrel escalated, tension snapping like a taut wire. Lula and Seth, once united in arrogance, now fought over the consequences of their own greed. I observed quietly, noting every twitch, every sigh, every faltering glance. This was more than revenge. It was justice served cold, precise, and inevitable. By nightfall, I sat in my study reviewing the day's events. I thought back to the moment I discovered the theft, the betrayal, the cold, empty safe, the stolen $180,000, and I realized a quiet satisfaction filling me that the plan was working flawlessly. They will never forget this week. They will never underestimate me again. And somewhere, in the new house and shiny car, Seth and Lula understood one undeniable truth. Oliver was no longer the man they could control. Before we continue, everyone listening, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment with where you're tuning in from. Revenge is not just about getting back what's yours. It's about teaching those who betray you a lesson they'll never forget. The morning sun filtered softly through my study window, casting long shadows across the floor. I sipped my coffee, calm, collected, while chaos reigned in their world. Seth and Lula had reached the point where every glance, every word, every step was a test of survival. Their once pristine new house now felt like a trap. Their silver Audi, once a symbol of pride, became a daily reminder that arrogance carries consequences. I made my move. Not with threats, not with yelling, not with anger. I struck with precision, subtle yet undeniable. First, the financial blow. I orchestrated a sequence of alerts, delays, and flagged accounts that left them unable to access funds. Seth's calls to banks were frantic. His voice trembled with desperation. Lula panicked, pacing, wringing her hands, the social facade crumbling. Then the personal blow. I revealed small truths to the right people. Whispers of impropriety, half-truths about the house, subtle exposures of their carelessness. Friends, neighbors, even distant acquaintances began noticing inconsistencies, leaving Seth and Lula cornered and humiliated without ever realizing who orchestrated it. They turned on each other completely. Arguments erupted over every minor oversight, every forgotten task, every slight misstep. Their unity, once a shield of arrogance, shattered under the weight of panic and fear. I watched from my quiet vantage, savoring the slow burn of poetic justice. And then came the final message, the confirmation I had waited for. Seth, Oliver, I can't do this anymore. Everything's gone. We were wrong. Please, what have you done? I smiled faintly, the calmest I had felt in years. You only see the beginning, I whispered to myself. Because in reality, the beginning had ended. The stolen $180,000, irrecoverable to them. Yet all the lessons, the fear, the understanding of consequence, priceless. I called them into my study that evening. They entered cautiously, the arrogance and confidence stripped away. I placed a single envelope on the desk, inside a note. Learn the cost of betrayal. This is the price of arrogance. No money, no yelling, no confrontation. Just a quiet, undeniable declaration. Oliver is untouchable. Seth and Lula left, humiliated, shaken, forever changed. And I returned to my quiet life, the calm restored, the satisfaction deep and complete. Revenge had been surgical, deliberate, precise, not destructive, but utterly effective. From that day forward, my life was mine again. Peace returned, but with a sharp edge of clarity. Never underestimate the man you betray. Never take from the one who waits patiently. And somewhere deep inside, I smiled at the memory of their arrogance, now replaced with humility, fear, and respect, the perfect balance of justice. Before we end, everyone listening, make sure to subscribe and comment where you're tuning in from. Remember, the most satisfying victories are calculated, silent, and unforgettable. Oliver's story proves that betrayal can be met with patience, precision, and the sweetest revenge of all. One that leaves no doubt who is truly in control.